Hello everyone, how's it going? I am M.L.S, and this is my weekly YouTube video series where we look at book covers, talk about why they might stand out, and then let you guys vote on which one is your favorite. I am, of course, your humble host, M.L.S, and if you want to support this channel and me as an author, you can always click on the subscribe button and the bell notification. And other things you can do, you can visit my blog. You can even go to my Amazon channel, look at some of my books that are available and see if maybe you want to give one a try. For now, though, I get the wonderful privilege to announce the winner from the first video I did for April. And that winner is Spellmaker. Spellmaker is a book by Charlie Holmberg, and why this book stood out to me was the use of asymmetrical balance and a little bit of reflection to really just kind of make this whole design sing. And I really enjoyed what the cover did. So got to be upfront with you. This actually ended in a tie, and I broke the tie in this case. If you had another cover that you liked, then what you got to do is just like in this video, you got to go to the link below. You got to click on it. You got to vote for your favorite so that it moves on to the book cover of the month. For now, the first entry for the book cover of the month poll that we're going to do for the month of April is indeed Spellmaker. And I just want to say that was a great, great job by that designer. And I certainly hope to see more from that individual. This week, though, we have 7 new covers to look at. I went ahead and this time, so that there is a little less lag for me looking, I went ahead and scanned through there and found some that stood out. So that gives me the chance to just kind of talk about them and spend a little more time talking about book covers and a little less time looking for book covers. So the first one we're going to talk about is City of Time and Magic. All right, this is a book by Paula Braxton. I love the color of this particular design. I really enjoy the feel of it, the time period that it's trying to harken back to. The use of the details in the outfit is a very, very beautifully rendered outfit. I like that it's an unusual point of view. It's very, very uncommon for a person to be represented in a cover and not have a face to associate with. But because this book is clearly about the time period, it's clearly about that Victorian feel or whatever those outfits might tie back to. But because it's about that kind of feel and that kind of nostalgia, it is actually smarter to focus in on the outfit and spend a little less time on the details of the person and more the details of the time period, the outfit, the romance of it, the feel. The font ties into it nicely, and the author text is very, very understated underneath. So that all works together wonderfully. The next cover we're going to talk about is Fate's Ransom by Jeff Wheeler. And so this one kind of cheats because bright light draws the eye. One of the reasons I'm sitting this way is the light I'm using to illuminate me. I'm recording a little later in the evening. And if I turn the wrong way, you'll see the light appear in my glasses. So you want to make sure you turn away so that that light doesn't show up. That same trick works in a different way when you do it on purpose. So this bright circle of light does 2 things. The brightness brings in the eye, and then the circle traps the eye. It's kind of a little bit of a dirty trick, but it works, especially when you have all this beautiful vignetting on the outside, all this little detail work, and the font is pretty cool to look at. So if you're going to pull a trick like this, where you got this big bright element that's going to draw the eye even for a millisecond, you have to have something where, one, it's not so bright it overwhelms it, because if a light's too bright, naturally, just like if you look at the sun or you look at the flash of someone's camera, you're going to shut your eyes and pull away, and we don't want to do that. So instead, it's bright without being too bright. And then when it draws the eye, there are lovely details that hold the eye. And I just think that's a clever use of a known habit that the eye has. So that's a good job by that cover. The next one we're going to look at is a little bit of a near and dear point of emphasis for me. I just love dragons. I think dragons of any kind, of any shape, I just think they're cool. People who render dragons always do just wonderful, beautiful work on the details of the scales. And so when I saw Fury by E.L. Todd, I knew I was going to select this as one of the book covers this week. I can't resist this, especially when they're done this well. I've seen bad images of dragons. It's just hard to do in my opinion, just because I'm so enamored with them as they're one of my favorite fantasy creatures. But there are things here design-wise that are worthy of note. Not such a fan of the font, the positioning, the way it's written, the actual style of font. They don't really do a whole lot for me. But what does do a lot for me is the balance. You have this yin and yang kind of look. I might have mispronounced that, so if I did, please, I'm not trying to be insensitive. I just don't know how to pronounce it. So you have two heads, and each of these heads. So if you kind of break any design into like a little tic-tac-toe grid, you're gonna determine what's called the rule of thirds, and that's just these little anchor points on each part of a frame, and those are typically where the eye wants to go when it's looking at a design. So having a dragon eye here and a dragon eye there does a great job of creating that nice those nice lines of force in a cover. And then you have the complementary colors working together. And believe it or not, I'm actually colorblind. I'm pretty sure this is red and this is a greener color. Maybe it's blue. I'm a little fuzzy on red and green, but they are colors that work well together. So when you fill the frame with these covers and you give it nice, beautiful detail, and you place the eyes of your subject right there in those rule of thirds, you're really doing a lot of simplistic but effective design. And when the things we're looking at are dragons, you're at least going to get me to look at your cover and maybe read your blurb. And I think that deserves note. And so that's a very good cover. Up next, we have another one of my go-tos when I look at design. You're going to see a lot of these silhouettes. So this is Hope But First War. This is a book by Michael Anderle, and I honestly love all of Michael Anderle's cover. He has all the covers I love, and I've never read any of his books. So, for me, that has way more to do with time than desire. But if I ever found myself with an audiobook credit I didn't know what to do with, and I didn't have a lot of books on my list, I would absolutely give any of his work a try just because of how beautiful his covers are. This cover has a much more cluttered background than I would normally want out of a silhouette, but it works because we have enough separation between the elements and enough detail for me to make out what I'm seeing. The text is well placed. I think this random hill or block. So I'm of the opinion that the designer put this in there to create a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. So what's happening is you have that rock element, and then you have the person, and then you have the moon behind it, and that creates depth. And I can appreciate that, but it's just too much in the way, in my opinion. The colors are still cool. The silhouette is still full of great detail, and I like the little power around the individual's arms. So it just kind of really brings out a lot of interesting things. It's not the best silhouette I've ever seen, but it did draw my eye, it did gain my attention. So the next cover we're going to look at is Acheron. Let me see if I'm pronouncing this right. Sometimes these titles can get a little fuzzy, and so can the name. Acheron Salvation is what I think you would pronounce this as, and it's by Ken Lazito or Lazito. If you're going to tune in just to have fun with me trying to read these names, then you're going to get your money's worth. But so I like the muted color background. It's a warmer yellow, but it's not so bright that it overpowers the eye. And this is a nice rendering model of a ship. The light isn't as awesome as a ship in space cover could be. when you're doing a science fiction spaceship around a base or a space station kind of thing, you really need to show off that light. This cover doesn't quite pull it off for me in that regard, but the color kind of stands out. The muted tones, the use of placing everything around. And so this cover stood out among the covers that I took time to look at. And the way this always works, in case you don't already know, is I'm just scanning Amazon, looking around at what jumps out at me and then talking about what I see and what stands out. So I don't have the time to really look for like the most amazing covers ever, but this cover isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. It just has a few things that I think can make it stand out even more. Uh, the positioning of the ship to create depth and to make room for the title text and the author text all stand out. I assume this symbol is part of the Federation Chronicles um, branding, and so you're going to have to get that in there somewhere. So they used the bottom half of the book to create that space. It's still nice color. It's still a pretty cool looking ship. So it's worthy of note, and maybe you'll like it. Maybe you'll vote for it in the link down below. The next one's a cover that I kind of had to look at more and more to appreciate it, and it's Fugitive Telemetry by Martha Wells. I think Martha Wells also is someone who consistently stands out with her covers, or the publishing group that publish her work does. I've actually seen some of the Murderbot Diaries. Why this really stands out to me is these robots and these figures are rendered. The classic style of this rendering really just kind of speaks to me. I really appreciated the muted colors, and normally that wouldn't work because if anyone's gonna have a knock on it, it's pretty flat. There's not a lot of dynamic light. There's not a lot of tonality with the brightness and the shadows that people are looking at, but that allows a viewer to focus on just all the detail work that went into these renderings of these robotic figures or these armored figures, whichever you'd have it. I've always loved her author text on this series and title text. So it really just kind of stands out. The branding is real consistent. But just for the cover in and of itself, we have this interesting but not overpowering background landscape with these really, really well done, cool looking figures. I wish they had their own space. I don't really like it when elements are too overlapping. Again, you got to create depth, and the only way, one of the only ways you can create depth in a two-dimensional drawing is to have layering. But when you have figures overlapping each other this much, is a little more than I would bargain for. But when you have this classic sci-fi feel with this really cool artistic rendering of these armored figures or robotic figures, you're still doing a lot that's right. All right, so next we're going to look at the Veiled Throne. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think we're going to get there. So the Veiled Throne is by Ken Liu. And why this stood out is it's just a picture of a chair, I guess. It's great detail work. It's great light. It's great little splashes of color. Pretty sure that's red down under there. And you're creating nice depth. This is good layering when you see a dominant figure in the foreground and then something in the distance that gives it scale, gives it depth. Those are all good design aspects. Ultimately, it's still just a picture of a metal object, and one could even argue it's not. I'm assuming it's a throne because of the title text, but it's actually kind of hard to make out that way unless someone's telling me that I'm looking at the back of the throne, maybe. But all the little detail in the metalwork and the way the light brings an eye to the object is still pretty well done. It's a cool looking figure. At the very least, it makes me curious. As I look on it more and more, what I think is someone's supposed to sit in this little space because it is called the veil throne. So maybe they sit behind those curtains and make kingly decisions from some sort of veil or method like that. I don't really know, but I know that this is nice light. I know that this is good use of title tech, good consistency and balance in the design, and good use of detail in the rendering of the throne. And so that means it stands out. That means it should get some sort of credit. And I really think the last one, I really think that's it. So let me minimize that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, indeed, we have 7 book covers, which means we found all the images we need for this week. Please help this become successful. Help these artists get some credit. Help these authors get some recognition, even if they're already best-selling authors. I promise you they're not against having people talk about their book more often. So if you have a minute and you like this, scroll on down real quick, click the link, vote for your favorite, and that winner will go up against all the winners from the previous week in the April Book Cover of the Month competition when it launches. So this is my 3rd video. So I got 1 more to go through in order to have 4 weeks worth of 1 month of covers. And then we'll do the Book Cover of the Month and we'll announce an overall winner. And, you know, it's just a fun way to talk about book covers, which is something I've always loved. I used to walk around bookstores, and I still try to do it, which just COVID is really kind of putting a hamper on a lot of our plans. But, you know, it's just walking through and looking at book covers. And that's kind of where this idea came from. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and I will see you next week.